going to start off by focusing on those records. We'll talk 0-3 teams shortly, but 5 teams sat at 3-0 on the season, undefeated right now. And I think, Brian, if going into the year you turned and said, right, week 3, 5 teams going to be a 3-0. Of the 5 that are there, I reckon you and I would have nailed 2 of them, no problem. I think the other 3 might not have even graced our top 10 of choices.
You couldn't have the Chiefs and the Ravens both in there because they kicked off the season, right? But, I mean, the Ravens finally this week against the Cowboys, which we'll get into, look like a team that is a Super Bowl contender. But you're completely right, Will. I mean, this is something we do 100,000% agree on. The season has been so unpredictable, and some of these teams that are still undefeated, nobody, not even the players, not the head coaches, not the fans, nobody was predicting that the Seattle Seahawks, the Minnesota Vikings with Sam Darnold would be undefeated. It has been a crazy start, but from an NFL perspective, it's been a perfect start because you have parity, which is what makes the NFL so special. You have veteran quarterbacks that fans know. You have rookie quarterbacks. You have great defenses. You have some offense. You have some superstars. It's a perfect combination. And I remember last year, the league it felt like on some level being carried early on by Taylor Swift, right? It was still the NFL. They're getting record ratings, but it was, oh my gosh, Tayllor Swift is at a game. The NFL was tweeting about it. We're not even talking about Taylor Swift right now. That's how good the on-field product has been through 3 weeks. And you have to watch. You have to pay attention to every score, watch every game, follow everything. Who won on Monday Night Football? Oh my gosh, Jaden Daniels did this. That's how good the league has been through 3 weeks.
That's a Monday Night Football game, by the way. And of all the fun, nerdy stats from the weekend, that Bengals Washington Commanders game was the first game since 1940.
When you were born, right?
Yeah, around about. Yeah. Like, I was probably just still in nappies at that point. Where neither team punted and there was no turnovers. Every drive was a scoring drive for the entire game. What's not to love about a game where it's end-to-end and every time you get there are points going on the board? So, look, we'll talk about that game in terms of the rookie quarterbacks, but what I want to do with these 3-0 teams, we're going to rank them based on how likely we think they are to go deep into the postseason. And because we love to skew just a little bit negative, all that positivity you've got around your team right now, we're going to just take a little bit of a dump on it and tell you when your first loss is coming, right? So let's start off with the Kansas City Chiefs. They go to Atlanta, they get the victory, they ruin Arthur Blank's big day as he gets put into the Ring of Honor there in Atlanta. They say it's the biggest game there possible. But yet again, from a Chiefs perspective, it's a performance where I thought versus the first 2 weeks where I actually didn't think they were necessarily the better teams against the Ravens and the Bengals. I think overall they were the better team against the Falcons. They moved the ball really well. They had time of possession, like I think it was about 2/3 to a third. They drove the ball. They had the yardage. Turnovers and red zone issues cost them. But overall, I thought they were the better team. And yet, the Falcons had 2 4th downs in the red zone in the fourth quarter to go and take a lead and what should have been a decisive lead in this game and weren't quite able to get over the line. So it's back to the same conversation as last week. The Chiefs do just enough.
You hate the Kansas City Chiefs. That was the conversation. The Kansas City Chiefs are overrated and they are the evil empire and they're the most hated team in the
They are overrated, but that's fine. Do we give them enough credit for winning despite not playing well? Or, as we look down the schedule of games coming up, are losses on the way?
I will give them credit for winning and being 3-0 and still being undefeated while Travis Kelce has 69 yards. I mean, the fact that Travis Kelce only has 69 receiving yards and this team is still winning. Now, Patrick Mahomes is saying that he's being double-teamed and triple-teamed, but the old Travis Kelce that I know, the pre-Taylor Swift Travis Kelce, he finds a way to impact games. He's not doing anything for this team right now offensively. They lose key offensive pieces. They lose Pacheco, and they're still winning. So they deserve full credit, which is what I was giving on the show last week. But they are not the best team in the NFL right now. I mean, they're holding on in my Super Bowl rankings maybe to number 1 barely, but that's just because of their legacy that we know in the end by week 17 by the playoffs, theoretically the Kansas City Chiefs will be better. That's what they did last year. Right now, as we speak, they're due for a loss. I think this is going to help you out. I think I'm going to predict right now.
Just me as an individual.
Let's see if I'm right in a few weeks. Kansas City Chiefs moved to 5-0, and their loss is against your San Francisco 49ers.
Now, I didn't pick that. And I don't know, we've got, what the schedules look like for the rest of the season for these teams, or at least for the next 6 games. So for the Kansas City Chiefs, I looked through those 6 games, and what concerns me about that game going on the road to the 49ers in week 8 is it's off the back of the bye. and Andy Reid has traditionally outcoached everybody in the NFL off the back of a bye.
Shanahan's pretty good, though.
Yeah, and it will be a long week for the 49ers because they'd have played Thursday night football. But the 2 Super Bowls where they faced off, the Chiefs have come out on top, and it's large part thanks to coaching, right? So I've got them beating the 49ers. I've then got them having a surprise loss on the road in week 9 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that defense by that point has got healthy. I think the Chiefs are going to be sat at 7-0, had a bye week, absolute cock of the walk, really feeling themselves. And they're going to go into Tampa Bay, who were embarrassed this week against the Broncos. And that's where they're going to suffer that first loss. And then they'll get a bit wobbly after that. Bills game coming up in week 11 is going to be huge. But yeah, I think for me, if I look down this list, I think they're most likely to be the last undefeated team. But let's crack our way through them.
Let's do it.
Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills. And I said Josh Allen before the Buffalo Bills, because as much as there's a lot to love about this Bills team, it kind of starts and stops with Josh Allen having an MVP season right now.
Yeah, Josh Allen is playing this game, and he's being... LeBron James, the king of the NBA, the all-time leading scorer, one of the biggest names in the sports world, is tweeting about Josh Allen while the game is going on. That's how good Josh Allen was on Monday Night Football. And maybe now people will start talking about the Buffalo Bills. We were talking about this last week on the program. I felt like they were maybe the most underrated team in the NFL. The Buffalo Bills have just been lights out thus far. When they dominated the Miami Dolphins on Thursday Night Football, all the talk was about Tua, right? And the concussion, and it was Tua. Well, you were right to point out, we didn't talk enough about how dominant the Bills were. That game was over before Tua went out. The Jacksonville Jaguars couldn't even show up on Monday Night Football. Trevor Lawrence sucks right now. Trevor Lawrence looks horrible. Doug Peters, I sort of hear some steps coming down the hallway from one of the cons that Doug Peterson might want to have his key card ready because he can get locked out of the building. That's how good the Buffalo Bills were. And Josh Allen, right now, through 3 weeks, Josh Allen would get my MVP vote. And it's a very fun conversation. If the Bills and Chiefs played right now, it's early, but right now, who's winning that game? Bills are the better team right now.
Yeah, neutral field, AFC Championship game, which obviously isn't played on a neutral field. But give me those two teams on a neutral field. I would take the Bills all day long based on the way they're playing through the first few weeks. Josh Allen is a huge part of it, but you've got to get excited about...
The schedule is hard, though. Like, you look at what they're facing coming up. You're dealing, so you're beating the Jaguars. Maybe that's the Doug Peterson gets fired game at the Ravens, at the Texans, at the Jets. Those having to deal with the Ravens and the Texans. Buffalo Bills are not staying undefeated.
You see, this is where I think they're really going to prove their mettle over the next 2 weeks, right? Because I think that defense looks great. I think they get rid of Stephon Diggs, and suddenly they make Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman.
Notice that the Bills have a little better chemistry without Stephon Diggs.
Don't they just? And that's why Stephon Diggs is, having friendly balls thrown to him, as he liked to tell us, out in Houston. But their supporting cast looks great. The defense looks great. The special teams looks great. And then they've got an MVP quarterback to lead them. I think they go into Baltimore and win. I think they go into Houston and win. I just think that 3 road games in a row against playoff contenders might be too much. Monday Night Football, under the lights, live on talkSPORT 2. My first loss of the season I've got for them is falling to the Jets in week 6 to go to 5-1.
So who's lasting the longest out of these teams?
There's a little part of
I want you to go first.
I think, I've already said I think the Chiefs go to week 9. For me, that's going to be the last undefeated team. And for people who aren't kind of aware of the fun history of this, right? Only one undefeated team in NFL history, thanks to Eli Manning and the New York Giants. Forever praise Eli Manning for beating Tom Brady in that Super Bowl and preventing the Patriots.
That was David Tyree helmet catch game too, right?
Yeah. So 1972, the Miami Dolphins, Larry Sonka, just unbelievable. That 3-year run where they went to the Super Bowl, won it twice and lost one, and had an undefeated season is up there with all the all-time great NFL dynasties. There is this old wives' tale. There is this tradition that every time a team is undefeated in the NFL, the players of that team pop the bottles. The last O to go means that the champagne comes out. They celebrate remaining the only team undefeated in NFL history. And so I think it goes until the Chiefs in week 9. Because I'm going to tell you, and we'll talk about these teams, I've got the Vikings losing this week to the Packers. I don't
think that's happening, but let's revisit that.
Losing this week to the Lions. And I've got the Steelers lasting one extra week and then losing to the Cowboys.
The Steelers are not losing to Anthony Richardson and the Colts. But yeah, I would not be surprised. I don't think they do it, but I would not be shocked if the Minnesota Vikings, and you got to keep Sam Darnold looking like the number 2 MVP in the league. At the Packers, that's an interesting game. That's a rivalry game, but that is a winnable game because you don't have Jordan Love, right? So they could, with Brian Flores.
They might have Jordan Love.
I think Vikings win that game. Lions is a fun game, but you're at home. You're winning against the Rams on the road. You're beating the Colts, and you're winning at the Jaguars. Are we sitting here and talking in 5 or 6 weeks, and the Minnesota Vikings are still undefeated?
If we're sat with a 9-0 Minnesota Vikings who have come out
with Sam Darnold as the quarterback,
who have come out to London as part of that run and continue to be undefeated here in London as well, I'm not going to say I'd eat my own hat because I don't have one on, but I just can't see it. And I actually think they go to the Packers this week. And I want to be completely effusive in my praise of the Vikings first and foremost. 34-7 winners over the Texans. And for me, it illustrated slightly that the 49ers keeping that game closed last week was surprising because that Vikings defense looks absolutely unbelievable. CJ Stroud for the Texans hasn't thrown a pick since week 11 of last season. His first throw of the game this week after they throw a very exotic disguised blitz at him, throws an interception. Throws a second one later in the game, chasing the game. They force fumbles. They turn the ball over. They get right after the quarterback. They had, I think it was Jonathan Grenard, had 6 quarterback pressures on the day. 10 different Minnesota defenders earned 2 quarterback pressures in this game. That means he was pressured over 20 times on dropbacks. That is an unbelievable rate. But I think the way that the Packers have coached up Malik Willis, I think the way the Packers have looked on defense through the first week, I think it being in Lambeau Field, the whole divisional rival thing, I'm going to be taking the Packers this week.
I'm taking the Vikes. Let's see who's right in a week.
Let's talk about the 2 teams who I think are the biggest surprise to be here, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Seattle Seahawks. The Steelers and Justin Fields. Russell Wilson gets injured pre-season. They have to start Fields. They refuse to admit he's the starter 3 weeks in. Even now, I watched that game back this morning, and I thought that as much as their defense is the big story, Justin Fields had 2 or 3 real money throws, which I never saw him make in Chicago. And actually, I think a Steelers team with Justin Fields at quarterback could be a proper playoff contender. I do think Justin Fields has looked brilliant. I think the offense is coming together. There is a running game there. Mike Tomlin, it's perfect Mike Tomlin football.
Mike Tomlin football, I love it.
It is defense first, run the ball, make enough plays.
1940s football. That's what we're dealing with.
They want to win games where they score no more than 20 points and concede no more than 10. And that's exactly what they've done this weekend. That defense, though, only 8.7 points per game through the first 3 weeks of the season is a ridiculous low through that many games.
Is TJ Watt better than JJ Watt right now?
TJ Watt is...
TJ Watt is a monster.
Unbelievable, but I'm going to make a kind of claim about this defense, is that I think if TJ Watt were to go out for 4 or 5 weeks, I'm not saying season ending, but missed a chunk of time, I think they've got enough else there to put it together. The guy who I think that defense is hanging together on right now is Joey Porter Jr., who, what a great story, drafted for the team his dad played for, came in, started as a rookie, very splashy, but also gave up a lot of big plays, bit of a wobble on whether he was going to actually be good or not. I think he is the whole heart of the back 7 of their defense. And so he's the guy I'd be more concerned about losing at this point. I've got the Steelers. I've got them losing to Dallas in week 5 because I'm trying to give the Dallas Cowboys fans something to be
Dallas might
about.
win one more game this year,
And I think just offensively in their own building, they might have too much for them. But that Pittsburgh defense, I thought they were going to have their first under 500 season. Mike Tomlin has never had a season under 500. One
of the greatest stats in modern NFL history.
This is an organization who have only had 3 head coaches in the Super Bowl era. Since 1969, only 3 men have held that job. And yet Mike Tomlin, in the years that he's had it, in the 2 decades he's been there, has never had a losing season. And I looked at this roster this year, and I looked at the quarterback, and I went, this is it.
And that's what everyone's saying.
This is their 8 and 9 year. This is their 7 and 10 year. Nope. I think they're going to go
good for
10
Justin,
wins,
good
11
for
wins,
Justin.
go to
We'll
the
save the
playoffs.
total positivity for later, but good for Justin Fields, who really, it never was right in Chicago. I mean, incredible running quarterback, more of a runner at one point than a passer. He loses weapons. You have all these changes. They treated him very, very, very poorly. They did not do right by him at all. Basically gave him away, and he's proving the Bears absolutely blew it right now.
So the Seattle Seahawks, next week they've got a really tough Monday night doubleheader game against the Lions team who haven't looked at their very best so far, but are getting wins, did it again this week, pulled out a gritty performance. Seattle, I came into this season, Mike Macdonald comes over, the defensive coordinator of the Ravens, who has been an absolute genius over there, comes into the NFC West. His whole thing is that he is the guy who has the new defense that the NFL is going to figure out, the Shanahan-McVay tree. They're going to go and they're going to go right back to Mike Shanahan's offense with the Broncos, and they're going to say, this is what's dominating. These guys, their offensive coordinators are getting head coaching jobs left, right, and centre. From within their coaching tree, there are 8 guys in the NFL right now in top-tier positions, head coaches or offensive coordinators, and Mike Macdonald's the guy who's figured them out. But he's going in Seattle team who it's a bit messy. We're not sure about, whether or not the splashy stuff from their corners last year was sustainable. Do they actually have a pass rush? And I went into the season, I went, look, I love Mike Macdonald. I think the Seahawks are going to be a very, very good football team from like November onwards. Because it's going to take a while for them to learn the scheme. It's going to take a while for them to figure Mike Macdonald out. And they've come out and looked absolute money against some bad teams. But I think the Seahawks might be the Seahawks or Vikings are the 2 biggest surprises for me of the season.
For me, it's not even close. It's the Minnesota Vikings. I don't believe in the Seattle Seahawks. Geno Smith is your quarterback. You might win 8 games. You might win 9 games. They kind of did this the last couple of years. This is what they do. They don't have enough talent. They're good. Credit to them. Very nice start. Nobody predicted it. I completely agree with you. But we will not be talking about the Seattle Seahawks in Week 17 or in the playoffs. I'm not super impressed.
Let's take a look through and look at our all 5 teams. Where's their first loss going to come? And then we're going to rank them. So for the Chiefs, I've got them losing to the Bucs in Week 9. You've got the 49ers on the road in Week 8. For the Bills, I fancy the Jets in Week 6 to go to 5-1. I think you said Houston the week before.
I'll take the Ravens.
Okay, next week.
The Ravens.
Wow, one of the next teams.
And by the way, let's just say this is all going to be wrong because you cannot predict every team's loss. This is a really bad idea. We're going to look really bad.
No, we're going 5 for 5 here, guys. One of us is going 5 for 5. We'll figure it out. The Minnesota Vikings, I've said this week to the Packers, you've got them going a lot deeper than that.
Minnesota Vikings aren't losing until after these games. I'll be wrong. The
Pittsburgh Steelers, I've got against Dallas Week 5.
Cowboys.
Yeah, okay. And then
agree.
The Seahawks, the Lions on Monday night.
That's why I don't really care about the Seattle Seahawks. Yeah. They're losing to the Lions. They're losing to the Lions the next game.
So if we're ranking these teams, I think we've both got the Seahawks in 5 right now by the sounds of it. And as much as that Steelers defense is great, got to prove it long term.
Justin Fields is still your quarterback. You don't have enough offensive talent. Yes, they are 4.
Fine. Just based on the performance this season so far, so slightly different to your Super Bowl contenders at talkSPORT.com. Chiefs, Vikings, Bills, what order are you going in?
As of this second on planet Earth, is that what we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Fine. What we've seen through 3 weeks.
Chiefs are number 3.
Yeah.
Chiefs are number 3.
I don't think it's close either. Yeah. I think those top 2 are in a tier totally of their own.
I'd love to see Brian Flores' defense go against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in the offense with Travis Kelce not being able to even contribute anymore. I think Minnesota would eat them alive right now.
Bills or Vikes as 1?
I don't like to be at this point in my life where I say just these incredible things about the Buffalo Bills because historically it comes back to really haunt you. I love the Buffalo Bills right now. Right now. They are just so strong. And I feel like this is a perfect example of it does take time. Like Justin Fields, like it takes time. You have to lose a little in the NFL. And not everybody's Patrick Mahomes. You have to lose a little. Josh Allen has been through it for years now. You get rid of Stephon Diggs. This is a really good Buffalo team at this moment.